Hello everyone, this is Crysis 3. I'm Tanner151 and this is my review. Now Crysis 3 is the sequel to Crysis 1 and 2. It is set 24 years later after Crysis 2 and is in New York, but New York has become encumbered with a jungle and is, at least part of New York, has a C.E.L.L. controlled dome over it, the Liberty Dome, where they are harnessing Ceph technology to increase their power. Officially, it is to cleanse New York of the Ceph infestation, but it is unofficially their center of unlimited energy in the world where they are becoming more powerful. In the world, the C.E.L.L. has become more powerful since Crysis 2 to 3. They practically control the economy and energy of the world, but this isn't explained in any kind of detail. This is just barely touched on. People in the game make references to things that happen in the gap between Crysis 2 and 3, but you don't know what they are. They make references to these all the time to try and explain it, but it doesn't work well because you don't know what happened between Crysis 2 and 3. The only way to find out and actually understand much of the story is to go around collecting the collectibles and then going back and reading those collectibles on the main menu screen, which will fill in the gaps of the story, but it does a poor job at doing it. Visually, Crysis 3 is beautiful, but it's not as huge of a step as Crysis 1 and Crysis 2 were. Compared to those previous games, the graphics for Crysis 3 have not improved all that much. But the water and sound for the game are very good. The water graphics are good, sound is really good, except for one part in the campaign where it was kind of corrupted files or something, I'm not sure, but it was glitchy at that point. In this game, you do collectibles, you have to collect them, it helps explain the story. The visor is back, and it was actually more useful in this game, and I used it a lot. There's a new mechanic in the game where you have to hack certain items, and it gets really repetitive and boring after a while, and it felt needless later on. The crossbow is hands down my favorite weapon in this game. It's not the most effective in multiplayer, but it is my personal favorite. I loved it. It felt strong. It felt powerful. Has multiple attachments to it and multiple ways to use it. You can do a heavy draw, which is the most power. You can pin enemies to the wall. You can do a light draw and just shoot them off like crazy, like Robin Hood. Or you can do a medium draw, which is, well, the medium of those two. I just loved it, and my personal favorite weapon. As you can see. Now, not only is this Prophet's conclusion in this game, it's also Psycho's story, where we find out about his torture and his humanity in this game. There's a new upgrade system where you can upgrade your nanosuit and you can enhance it, and you have 3 sets, as you can see in the bottom right, of how you want those to be used. And it was useful, it was decent. The attachment system in campaign is the same as it was in Crysis 2 and 1. You can change it on the fly, which is really cool. I did like that. As I said earlier, the graphics in this game are very good, especially when this door opened and you could see all the light, the greenery. It was a very effective way of saying this is a good game, graphics wise. The rust, you can really tell that this game had a lot of thought and detail into the nature. Now, in the game, Psycho, even though it's trying to show his humanity more, he got annoying really quick, really fast. He's always yelling, telling you to piss off, all this stuff. It got annoying later on. I was annoyed with him, and I think they should have toned down his character a bit. He sounded like a whine baby. Throughout the game, you'll get these hallucinations, and that's supposed to help the story along, but it doesn't really do it. He gets hallucinations from the Alpha Ceph, which is the big bad guy, which has supposedly been the big bad guy since Crysis 1, but you never see him until Crysis 3. I found that very odd and strange. And as I said earlier, to even find out where or how to even understand the story at some points, you had to go to all these areas through here just to find out the background to the game, background to the story, because they don't explain it in the game. So the Alpha Ceph, you have no idea what that is until you go to these diaries and you read them. They do help. They did help fill in the storyline a bit, and I do appreciate that it was there. But I think they should have found some way to implement at least some of these into the actual game so we know who the Alpha Ceph is, why are we fighting him, and why Prophet is so angry and even knows about the Alpha Ceph and how the Ceph are a hive mind. I never knew that until Crysis 3. Bad storytelling on their part.
Well, I don't know about you, but I call that fucking flawless.
No. Now, the multiplayer for Crysis 3 is pretty standard in game modes, but it does have their Crysis spin on it, and I did like it. I enjoyed the multiplayer much more in this game. It was much more fun. It's a little faster. The armor transitions seem quicker and more effective, and I really enjoyed it. They also have this new game mode called C.E.L.L versus Rebels, and where you're the C.E.L.L versus Rebels, no nano suit at all. It's very Call of Duty like, I guess, but it was actually really fun to play because it didn't take as many bullets, and you could use the crossbow and snipers much more effectively. But there are a lot of glitches in this game, as you can see here. There are plenty of glitches in the multiplayer, just ridiculous. And the kill cams, they might as well not even be in about how glitchy they are. And there's so many pop-ins, as you saw there. There's so many. Now, Hunter mode is probably one of my favorite game modes. I do like it. When you're the C.E.L.L, you're like, oh my god, Hunter. And when you're a Hunter, you feel like awesome guy. But the C.E.L.L camp a lot. It's the only way to really survive any amount of time is to camp in corners with shields and have buddies with you. It's almost unfair for the Hunter. Now, there is a host migration system, but it just doesn't work out most of the time. It's almost useless. Now, the air stomp in this game, I liked it. It felt useful. I didn't use it at all in Crysis 2, really, but in this game, I felt awesome. It works. This game has a pretty decent progression system, and it shows all the unlockables you get. And it has a fairly deep unlockable system. The dog tags are really cool. I did like that. Choose your background pretty much. The created class has been expanded upon, but I think it could have used a little more work in terms of different guns, but attachment-wise was pretty solid. And they've added a new feature called the challenge. Like, it's essentially daily challenges where you get social from Crynet, from your squad, and even from in the lobby, which I thought was a really good idea. It really kept it going. The interesting seeing all these new challenges helped me rank up. I like that. That was good. So what have we learned about Crysis 3? It is the sequel to Crysis 2. It has really good graphics, great sound, multiplayer is smoother, the controls in general felt smoother. It has a fun multiplayer. The campaign, I will say, even though it was shorter by many hours than the Crysis 2 campaign, it only took me about 5 hours on normal. But it was more action. It was constant action, action, action. I wasn't bored, and I was bored during the Crysis 2 campaign a lot. I felt bored and like, I don't want to play this. But playing Crysis 3 campaign, I wanted to play it. It was fun. I liked it. Now, and the kill streaks in the multiplayer have been expanded upon. They're better. They feel more useful because in Crysis 2, I never really got them, to be honest. But in Crysis 3, I actually play better on the multiplayer. Now, even though Crysis 3 is really good in a lot of ways, it should have been expanded upon. I don't think they should have released it just 2 years after Crysis 2. Because the multiplayer is really glitchy, and the campaign didn't feel... It seems like Crytek made a campaign, or made all the action sequences, then decided to throw the story in there at some points. They really should have spent more time on telling a good story, because that's what makes people want to come back and play the campaign. Not the action in the campaign, it's the story. And if the story's not good, do I want to play it again? Not really. The only reason I'm going to play the campaign again is to get more achievements. Now, the multiplayer, as I said, has been a lot better. It's been improved upon. It's been smooth, but it doesn't really seem different than Crysis 2. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad, but it feels very Crysis 2-like. Which isn't a bad thing, but I think they should have expanded upon it a little more, had more weapons, more new weapons. Now understand that I only played the Xbox 360 version of this game, which for the Crysis series is the lesser version of the franchise. If you want to play this game and experience it in all its glory, play it on the PC. The PC has amazing graphics, that I do know. The console is just decent. But on the PC it has amazing graphics. It is incredibly smooth. It works so well. There almost seems to be no heaviness that's present in the console version. So do get the PC version if you want a better experience. And that's about it. So my final score for this game is, after much thought, a 6 out of 10. It's really good. Don't get me wrong. It's really good. It's not quite there to being great. It could have been great with more time, but maybe future DLC campaign. I doubt they'll do campaign DLC, but if they do multiplayer DLC, they'll expand upon it, but it won't change the final score to this game. My final score for this game is a 6 out of 10. Thank you for watching my Crysis